The Public Health Agency of Canada continues to use national security as their reason not to tell Canadians about the mask stockpiles they kept or didn't keep at the agency, which is weird because CSIS doesn't have a problem handing out that information. Today's latest expose into the Liberals' continued failures at the Public Health Agency of Canada comes to us by way of an order paper question asked about government mask stockpiles and then stockpile purchases as the pandemic was headed towards Canada. The question was asked by Edmonton Conservative MP Kelly McCauley. McCauley asked the government, with regard to government purchases of personal protective equipment, or PPE, how many units of PPE did the government have in Canada by November 30th, 2019, broken down by type of equipment, and how much PPE was purchased in this month. Then he goes on to the next month. How many units of PPE did the government have in Canada by December 31st, 2019, broken down by type of equipment, and how much PPE was purchased in this month? He asked for the next month. How many units of PPE did the government have in Canada by January 31st, 2020, broken down by type of equipment, and how much PPE was purchased in this month? You see where he's going, right? He asked the same question over and over to the government until the end of March 31st, 2020. That was the last time he wanted to know the amount of PPE that they had on hand and the amount of PPE that was purchased by all government agencies across the whole of government. It's a great question because it shows two things. It shows that the government was buying up masks, or at least some agencies were, when the government was telling Canadians that masks weren't all that useful and that we didn't need to use them. But it also shows another thing. It shows that the Public Health Agency of Canada is desperately trying to hide its own failure under the guise of national security. Almost every other department in the government responds, even places where it doesn't even make sense to, like finance and the Department of Women and Gender Equity. They knew how much PPE they had at each date. But look at this on page 47. Public Health refuses to answer, claiming it's in the interest of national security to not say how many masks they had on hand. Health Canada says they have no idea how many masks and how much medical PPE they have. Environment and Natural Resources Canada says it would just take too long to figure it out, so they don't bother to come up with a figure. But here's where that very weird national security excuse that Public Health Agency of Canada is using to hide their complete and total ineptitude, here's where it all falls apart. In contrast to the Public Health Agency of Canada, the Department of National Defence and the Communications Security Establishment have provided a detailed rundown of what PPE they have and what PPE they acquired, as does the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS. They do it on page 121. As does Customs and Border Security Agency, so the CBSA, on page 122, as does the RCMP on page 124. And on page 120, the ironically named Public Safety Canada, well, they had no PPE and they didn't bother to acquire any. However, if these public safety agencies can say how many masks they have on hand, or don't in the case of public safety, what is the Public Health Agency's real excuse? Other than it would be embarrassing to admit Dr. Theresa Tam didn't do her job, her one and only job, and keep the stockpiles up post-SARS epidemic. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. Did you know the head of Canada's Public Health Agency, Dr. Theresa Tam, also works for the World Health Organization? And we all know the World Health Organization is China-centric. It's China-polluted. To learn more facts like that, facts the mainstream media doesn't want you to know, can I suggest you get the boss, Ezra Levant's new book? It's called China Virus. You can get it at chinavirusbook.com and get it today. It's already been banned by Amazon twice. The third time's definitely coming. Just go to chinavirusbook.com.